All right, welcome to the December 7, 2023 meeting of the Mackinac Straits Corridor Authority. The meeting is called to order. The minutes should reflect that all three authority members are present, and I'll entertain a motion for approval of the agenda.
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Secondly, approval of the October 2, 2023 meeting minutes.
I make a motion to approve the October 2, 2023 meeting minutes.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. We are on to new business, and the first item with respect to new business is the annual report to the Mackinac Bridge Authority and MDOT Director as required specifically in the authorizing statute that created the authority. We have prepared a report to be provided to each of those individuals. Ryan, would you like to speak at all on this item, or?
Thank you, Chairman. I will defer to Ray, if
Okay.
that's okay. Ray Howd.
Yes, Chairman Novak. This report is required by Public Act 359 that created the Mackinac Straits Corridor Authority, and that statute requires the board to provide a report to the Mackinac Bridge Authority and the Director of MDOT at least annually regarding aspects of the utility tunnel that could affect the Mackinac Bridge, including the progress in construction and utility leasing. And so the memo essentially indicates what has taken place over the last year, the new members that have been appointed and their term expiration. It also discusses the status of Enbridge's construction, and which no construction has occurred. Talks about the permitting processes and the status, and also refers to the December 1st, last Friday's Public Service Commission order, and as a result of that order, it did affect the report as it relates to third-party utilities, because the Public Service Commission indicated that if there are going to be any third-party utilities co-located within the tunnel, that Enbridge would be required to petition and seek approval for that third-party utility.
All right. Do we have a motion to approve issuance of this report as the statute requires to the Bridge Authority and the MDOT Director? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right. The report is approved. Next agenda item is project permitting updates. The first of those is the MPSC and the decision that came out last Friday. Ray, do you want to provide a summary of that?
Yes,
That
Chairman.
350
That 350-page
349
order.
opinion.
The order was very comprehensive. It laid out the history of the proceedings, which have been ongoing now for 2.5, 3 years. It lays out the background of Enbridge's pipeline, the positions of the parties after the first go-round, and an outline of all the testimony from all the parties. Then it goes through and discusses what was filed in the briefs. The initial briefs, which included the Enbridge Commission staff, the Michigan Propane Gas Association, Michigan Laborers Council, Bay Mills for the Love of Water, and Environmental Law Policy Center. Then it laid out and discussed the reply briefs that were filed. Then the record in July of 22 was reopened to add additional evidence, and so the opinion then lays out the positions of the parties on reopening, the rebuttal testimony, the sur-rebuttal, the initial briefs on reopening, the reply briefs on reopening, and then finally on page 289, they get to the analysis of the Enbridge permit process. The actual order is laid out on pages 347, 348 of the order. And what they did was find that the legal framework is that this permit application was filed under Act 16 that relates to pipelines and facilities and conditions and operations of pipelines. And so the commission had the authority to determine granting the permit, denying the permit, or granting the permit with conditions. The commission had to examine three major areas. One was whether or not Enbridge had demonstrated a public need for the proposed pipeline. Two, that the proposed pipeline was designed and routed in a reasonable manner. And three, does the proposed pipeline meet or exceed current safety and engineering standards? The short of it is that the commission believed that Enbridge had met all of those requirements and issued an order with conditions. The conditions are as follows. If there are any significant changes to the design of the tunnel that may be ordered, say, by the Army Corps of Engineer permit, then the commission would consider significant changes to the design and construction techniques to be inconsistent with its opinion, and Enbridge may have to revisit the Public Service Commission again to get authority consistent with any changes or permit conditions that the Army Corps may ultimately issue. To the Corps, and of course Enbridge has to obtain all required governmental permits and approvals. Second, prior to the construction of the tunnel, the Public Service Commission, in adopting PSC staff testimony, indicated that Enbridge would provide the authority with a detailed risk management plan, which includes a description of the planned geotechnical test bores and frequency of probe hole testing ahead of the tunnel boring machine, and should include reporting of both test bore data and probe hole data in real time so the state MSCA can assess risks and construction plan modifications based on the data that's provided. The detailed risk management plan should also include inspections for concrete cast sections prior to moving them into the tunnel, and after being put into place, placement of gaskets, regular analyses of bentonite mixed properties and changes in slurry pressure, deviations from and modifications to the plan during the construction should be reported by Enbridge and made available to the public for review. Finally, Enbridge shall implement procedures for low hydrogen welding for all mainline girth welds, shall ensure that the procedures require both preheat and interpass temperature requirements, and shall ensure that the mainline girth welds are non-destructively tested using automatic phased array ultrasonic testing methods as proposed by the commission staff, and that's laid out in the opinion. One final note on the third-party utilities, the commission found that there just was insufficient evidence as to the layout of any fiber optic lines. The commission noted that PFN was the only third-party utility that has indicated interest, and there was testimony by various experts indicating that they had some concerns not knowing what effect, if any, the co-locating of third-party utilities equipment might have on the safety of the tunnel. And therefore, to the extent that any third-party utilities are to be co-located within the tunnel, then Enbridge would be required to petition the PSC to get approval for co-locating those third-party utilities. I'll take any questions if there are any.
I will have a question for council, not to answer today, but for purposes of future consideration of the condition placed on co-location of other utilities. And that is whether whether the commission would have jurisdiction over that issue if there were merely the placement of one of those co-located utilities in the tunnel, absent the pipeline going through the tunnel. I'm trying to get a sense of what their normal exercise of jurisdiction would be over that issue if it were not joined at the hip, so to speak, with the existence of a pipeline.
Yes, Chairman Novak, the commission did raise that issue. They were not requiring a permit simply because PFN has no requirement for fiber optic cable to get authority to lay the pipe work. They indicated that the tunnel, which is a facility in which the pipeline will be located. The commission indicated that the tunnel is actually a facility and is inextricably tied to the pipeline that will be placed within the tunnel, and the commission asserted its jurisdiction on the basis of the use of that tunnel for a pipeline and considered this to be ancillary to its decision on whether or not the route was reasonable and that the pipeline it met or exceeded safety standards.
Ancillary, but not so ancillary that they weren't going to exercise jurisdiction over the additional location of that utility.
They are going to exercise jurisdiction.
Right. Okay.
Yes, as a facility for the pipeline being placed in the tunnel, and so they look at it as one big picture. All the testimony related to how Enbridge was going to construct the tunnel and the pipeline, and there really was a dearth of evidence as to how exactly PFN would construct the fiber optic lines and what, if any, concerns there might be by having those fiber optic lines in the same tunnel as the pipelines.
Okay. Any other questions for Ray?
Yes, I have a question for Ray, but I don't expect an answer now. It may be that you will answer it or your successor will answer it. I want to focus particularly on subparagraph C in the conditions regarding the risk management plan. Mm-hmm. And I would like clarification as to whether, as I believe suggested implicitly, the MSC must approve the risk management plan. It's not stated necessarily explicitly in this paragraph, at least. I think that, of course, it stands to reason that if it's going to be presented to us, it must be approved, because that would be just a pro forma exercise otherwise. But I'd like confirmation that there is an approval process that this necessarily implicates. And then also, I would like to understand the connection between the requirement of a risk management plan is stated in this order and what we have been doing now for some months regarding the issue of risk more broadly. For example, we're very much focused on quality management, having quality assurance, quality control, making sure that the protocols and contractual requirements for those very important issues are embedded in relevant contractual documents. And I would like to make sure that we assess and understand the interrelationship between this permitting requirement that has been announced by the MPSC on the one hand, and the efforts that we are now working the efforts that we're undertaking to make sure that QMS, QC, QA are all what they need to be, both operationally and contractually. I think that there probably is a significant overlap, that you can't have a risk management plan without those things being taken care of in advance contractually. We're going to have to be able to see in any quality management plan that's presented to us a system that ensures that these documents are generated, that certifications are made, and that we have the ability to access documents to confirm all of this. But again, that's my impression. I think it's something that should be looked at by council and addressed with Enbridge and others, so that we're all on the same page as to, again, the interrelationship between the risk management plan required in this permit and what we're doing currently to make sure that quality management, quality assurance, quality control are what they need to be. So that's for the future as well. But I would like to ask Ray or Ryan whether you have any opinions about this issue, or is it best to defer until we receive advice that's considered from council? But I would just want to give you an opportunity to address.
I would believe that there is an implicit approval process by the MSCA for this detailed risk management plan.
And I would only agree that there is a natural and necessary connection between risk management and quality management, and for the mitigation to be validated or verified.
Can you speak louder, please?
Sorry. I'll agree, Andy, that there is an obvious and necessary connection between risk management and quality management, and that in order to ensure that the mitigation has been carried out, that the record will bear out in the quality documentation.
Mm-hmm. And that we have to assure ourselves as a body that we're satisfied that what needs to be done has in fact been done, and that the documents that demonstrate effective quality management, which is a subset of risk management, are what they need to be, and we can access them and through our IQA evaluate them.
Yes.
Okay, and that's something that I imagine our SAAGs will look at in the future to make sure that this general impression is one that is valid and otherwise correct. Thank you.
I have one question. I don't know if there's a subsequent point on the agenda where any Enbridge, maybe I can ask it when we get to the agenda item where an Enbridge person will be presenting. But the one question I have of Enbridge is whether there is anything in this PSC opinion that they would envision moving to clarify or reconsider, just so that there is more either clarity or perhaps revision of what it is the PSC issued on Friday. I think there is a 30-day time period for motions for reconsideration of PSC orders, although I haven't looked at that deadline for over 20 years, so it might not be the same timing as it used to be. But I raise that only because I would be interested to know whether there is anything for which the company is envisioning moving for clarification or reconsideration of. Any other intervener would also have that opportunity. And for that matter, if if we were considering, Andy, on your point, the point about the risk management plan requiring not only that it be submitted, but that it be approved, that is something for which clarification from the PSC could be sought if we don't think it is sufficiently clear in this opinion. But we would have a limited time window under which to do so. I'll save the reconsideration issue from the company's perspective if that's something they would be able to address when we get further down the agenda. We can also discuss with, I think it would be incoming legal counsel, simply the process for which any clarification might be sought. I'm not suggesting that we need to do that. I'm simply only identifying that if we do, I think it's a decision we would need to make fairly quickly. Anything else with respect to the PSC decision?
Chairman Novak, I would at least bring up that if, I'm not sure what the period is for filing a motion for reconsideration. You are correct, the appeal period runs 30 days from the issuance of the order or by December 31st of this year. But if the board was not meeting, how would the determination be made to proceed to file some type of a motion for reconsideration?
I've thought of that too. That would mean yet another meeting before the end of the year unless we wanted to delegate that authority to one of us in advance of that. And I'm not saying right now, frankly, I haven't reviewed this opinion enough to know whether that is something that we would want to consider. So I'm only raising the timing limitation on it more than
And I think
anything
that's a
else.
good thing to consider. I'd also ask our counsel to consider the difference between reconsideration and clarification and whether the same deadlines would apply to a clarification, if there is a need for one, of language that I think implicitly is clear, but is not necessarily stated explicitly. Do different deadlines apply for those two inquiries? And is there an inquiry for a clarification? Is there a deadline for a clarification as opposed to reconsideration? I think that reconsideration essentially means please do it over again in the sense that we don't agree, as opposed to could you be a little clearer? So I would ask our counsel to think about that as well.
All right. Our next agenda item, the Army Corps of Engineer permitting process. Ryan, you're up.
Thank you, Chairman Novak. So a brief update. The status of the Army Corps permitting process is that the Corps continues to prepare the Environmental Impact Statement, or EIS, and is currently identifying potential alternatives for its alternatives analysis within the EIS. This winter season, fall, winter of 23 and 24, the Corps will review the data collected to prepare the draft EIS, which will take place in 2024 per the Corps' schedule, which is posted publicly. Enbridge continues to participate in the EIS process, responding to data requests, providing the Corps information related to the analysis and the data collection, and as it relates to Corps questions related to field surveys. As I mentioned, per the Corps' posted schedule, the conclusion of the EIS process is anticipated to be in 2026. So no change to that.
Okay. Any questions for Ryan? All right. then we are on to construction contractor selection process and general progress update from Enbridge. And if you could also address the question I had a minute ago, that would be helpful.
Yep, thank you. Yeah, so to your MPSC question, we are still reviewing the order as you dictated as well, and are considering our options during that 30-day period. So I think, as council stated, the December 31st, I think it's January 2nd, just given the holiday in there is the deadline. But, so that's our current position
So
there.
we could meet on the 1st if we wanted to.
Ring in the new year.
I'm at Disney World.
So just wanted to provide you a brief update on our contractor selection. Not a big change from our October meeting. Still continuing to work through some terms and conditions with the potential contractors and those bidders. As we just talked about, the Army Corps permitting, so some of those conditions or variables in those different contracts are stemming from permitting delays at the Army Corps level. So still in a position, as you said, there's a lot of time here left in the end of the year, so we're still in a position to award a contract by the end of the calendar year.
Okay. Anything else for your update?
Don't believe so. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions?
Thanks.
Yeah.
As has been discussed at past meetings, there is a multi-party or multi-stakeholder process of risk mitigation, which clearly, in certain instances, potentially or theoretically implicates the contract between Enbridge and whoever the construction company that is retained. And I want to make sure that Enbridge appreciates the connection between the issues that are being discussed and the possible need to include language to address them in the contract. And do you believe, in light of what you know about those discussions, that there will be time to vet the issues, like, for instance, regarding quality management and others that have been discussed, so that the contract is what it needs to be before it is fully and finally executed?
Yes, I appreciate the question, and I think, yeah, we absolutely are committed to, ensuring that any potential risks are mitigated throughout through any language or other conditions or provisions within the contract. So, happy to continue to have those discussions with the appropriate stakeholders and just ensure, that's what's laid out within the tunnel agreements and the commitments with the state are reflected in those contracts as well.
Okay, thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? All right, then we are up to agenda item sub 4, independent quality assurance contractor procurement. Ryan, you're up.
Thank you, Chairman. So the summary of activity related to the independent quality assurance contractor procurement is that the RFP for these services was the request for proposals. RFP was posted November 6th. Proposals are due December 11th. We've issued 4 Q&A responses related to inquiries around the RFP, and that we anticipate seeking board approval for a selected contractor at the February 2024 MSCA meeting.
Okay. The Q&As that were issued as part of, I'm assuming that different submitters requested clarification or submitted questions to clarify how they would prepare a bid. as part of the usual RFP procurement process. But I don't think, and I apologize if they've been forwarded to, and I just overlooked them. Could you provide the Q&As that issued, just so, to the authority members, just so we have an opportunity to take a look at them?
I can. And if I could summarize them, Member Novak, Chairman Novak, that they
Member is fine, I'm not.
Okay, sorry. To summarize them, they're mostly related to the process and specifically related to conflicts of interest that potentially stem from serving on this role. Because of the sensitivity of this work, there's some not unusual, but MDOT's standard conflict of interest policy would not have covered the requirements for these service providers. And so there were questions related to that. But we will certainly provide there were a total of 5 questions over those 4 Q&A matrices that were provided to proponents. And that was generally the nature of them. They're process-related questions and questions related to conflicts of interest.
Other questions?
This is not a question, it's a request. The IQA is obviously central to what this entity in Michigan is going to do, what we're going to do to make sure that the project is what it needs to be when it comes to quality, safety, and the like. For the sake of shared awareness with the public or anyone else, could you please do a little bit to explain what the IQA is, how many people will be part of the IQA, who's paying for the IQA, how engaged in the project will the IQA be, and in what ways? That's a 5-part compound question, and I expect you to remember everything that I asked for.
I'll do my best. I'll do my best to get close, Member Doctoroff. Yes, so agree 100% that the IQA is the MSCA's on-site, day-to-day quality management representation for the construction of the project. And technical issues generally that stem from the construction of the project. The role is to collect and summarize and or just provide regular updates about quality records related to construction as the work is carried out. They will have, I couldn't tell you the exact number of staff that would be involved in my estimating around it. I presumed in the range of half a dozen to a dozen, depending on the construction activities that were underway. There will be engineering expert staff that will not be on site, but would be available to the team as questions related to quality or just technical questions arise. But there will be a constant and I guess permanent on-site staff presence as well to oversee construction operations on a daily basis and be in contact with quality assurance staff that would be contracted by Enbridge and to oversee construction activities and quality control activities.
And you answered 4 of my 5 questions. I'm going to get back to the 5th one, which is in terms of payment. The tunnel agreement executed in 2018 states that Enbridge is to pay for the IQA. But I want you to confirm that notwithstanding this, the scope of work that is part of the RFP was our own, reflecting our independent assessment of the role that the IQA should play. Is that correct?
That is correct. And to answer the fifth question, yes, Enbridge will provide the funds for the IQA per the tunnel agreement.
Yep, so, but the key point is, this is, the IQA is our representative, will be acting pursuant to a scope of work that we determine based on consultation with our experts, notwithstanding the fact that Enbridge is funding per agreement the IQA.
Correct.
Thank you.
Thanks, that was helpful. Anything else with respect to the IQA?
No, I recorded a request for the question and answer, the inquiries to be provided to members, which I can provide. And again, just noting that we will likely pursue approval of the selected or the recommended proponent at the February meeting.
Okay. Next item is Special Assistant AG contract update. Ray?
Yes, Chairman Novak, this is my last meeting after 3 years, and I really enjoyed this whole experience. This is a huge, significant project. I've learned so much and really enjoyed working with the board members. My replacement is Devin Sullivan and John Andrew Loosely, who are here, and if you don't mind, maybe they could stand up and introduce themselves and
Sure.
give a brief summary of their experience.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Ray. So for the last 8 years, I've been a Special Assistant Attorney General representing the Michigan Department of Transportation on both the Gordie Howe International Bridge Project and now the I-94 Modernization Project, as well as another matter. Mr. Loosely's been working with me on those as well. It's been a great honor and one of the privileges of my career to represent the state on those matters, and I'm really humbled to be considered by the authority to extend that representation to this board as well. And happy to answer any questions that you might have.
I have no questions.
Thank you. I have examined the SAAG contract that is before you, Chairman Novak, for your signature. As I indicated, the parties to the contract are Mr. Sullivan and Mr. Loosely, and the term is beginning December 1st. They're on board now, subject to your signature, and through December 31st of 2025. It is a 2-year term. The authority is responsible for payment for the services and reimbursement of expenses. The budget ceiling has been set for the 2-year term at $400,000. And the hourly rates for Mr. Sullivan are $325 per hour, Mr. Loosely $295 per hour, and there is a paralegal, Holly Johnson, who would be paid at $135 an hour. The SAG contract is a standard SAG contract utilized by the Attorney General. I see nothing extraordinary about it, and I would recommend its approval.
Okay. One comment, Ray, I just wanted to indicate how much I've enjoyed working with you on this. It probably didn't hurt. Both Ray and I are old dinosaurs from working in the Attorney General's office back to Frank Kelly days. So frequently when I would call on authority stuff to talk to Ray, we'd also spend like 5 or 10 minutes of the conversation just catching up on gossip as to who was doing what back from that time period. But even aside from that, I enjoyed working with you specifically on this project. The legal expertise and appreciation for issues that you provided, the insight that you gave me about stuff that was done before me or the other authority members got here, were all very helpful. So I wanted to say how appreciative I am of the service that you've provided. And in the event you want to call up sometime and just catch up on the AG gossip side of things, feel free to do that as well.
Thank you, Chairman. I certainly will bug you.
And I would be remiss, Ray, if I were not to say how I, too, am appreciative of your statutory contractual expertise and your being there at all times in a very diligent way. Thank you so much. We're really looking forward to Zausmer and Devin, but you will be missed. I personally have worked closely with Devin, and I'm quite satisfied that he is a very great replacement, as is the firm, and we're lucky to have him and Zausmer, as we feel, grateful for your engagement with the project. And it's a kind of smooth handoff with the baton being given from one great SAAG to the next. So thank you, and we look forward to working with you, Devin and Zausmer.
Thank you, Andy.
So I'll entertain a motion to approve the new, to execute the new SAAG contract.
Make a motion to approve the new SAAG contract.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
It's approved. I was hesitant to sign it.
Requesting approval for additional funds, or requesting consideration of a motion to approve additional funds for Mike Mooney, LLC, our tunnel engineering expert who's been with the project for its entire life, and who previously served as a state contract employee developing the feasibility study prior to his time as a consultant to the state. This is continued as-needed advisory tunnel engineering services to assist the MSCA with the Mackinac Straits infrastructure project, as it's known in our budgetary system, our accounting system, for the tunnel. The permitting delays have extended beyond his original contract date, and so we extended for time. Through December 17th of 2028, but he is running low on funds, and so we're asking for approval of 1,550 additional hours for a cost of $503,223.96, which includes expenses as well. And that's the content of that request.
Okay. So I'll entertain a motion for the approval of the additional amounts that you just referenced in terms of hours and expense at the projected amounts that you indicated. Anything else?
No, sir.
Okay.
Only thing I have to say is that Mike's invaluable, and he provides very sober, objective, expert consultation and opinions on a host of matters that we consider. So it's money very well spent. And I do assume, Ryan, that money will be not, it will be charged hourly, and if in fact he doesn't, earn all the money and doesn't spend all those hours, that full appropriation will not be used, correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
All right.
I'm
Was that, okay. All in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Okay. The additional funding has been approved. I'd like to take just a quick,
There's one old business thing that.
oh, all right. Yeah, old business did not get on the agenda, but I wanted to touch base with Ryan with respect to any old business items, if you can address those now.
Yes, Chairman, thank you. So at the last MSCA meeting of October 2nd, you had requested of staff a summary of the risk assessment that had been conducted. That we were prepared to provide a draft of that. But given the MPSC order, we understand that you'd like to have that contemplated, which we agree makes a lot of sense because there's a lot of information that is now officially been included in the order. So just wanted to raise that as old business and understand from your perspective the future of that assignment.
Yeah, I would still be interested in seeing a review of that issue that can be presented publicly. I know you did give a summary in the October meeting of the risk management issues, but it also dovetails nicely with the condition placed in the MPSC order with respect to the submission of a risk management plan, for that matter. So after there is an opportunity to more thoroughly digest what it is the MPSC has done, I think an updated presentation on that, perhaps at the February meeting, would be in order. Did you want to make any other comments about that, Andy?
I just, and I recognize that there's going to be a more robust discussion at the next meeting, but it has been 2 months, and we have been busily engaged in the issue of risk mitigation. And I'd like to ask Ryan just to give the public, if appropriate, I guess a high-level overview of what's been going on and how you think things are going and the status of things.
Sure. Member Doctor, if I can do that. At the last meeting, we did summarize our initial findings based on our initial assessment of risk on the project as requested. And then in order to be prepared to deliver what Chairman Novak requested, which was a summary document, we had, and specifically Chairman Novak, you requested proposed mitigations to risks. And those may take the form of acknowledgments or memorandums of understanding between parties to the tunnel agreement or others. And so that we had we've been working, as Member Doctoroff mentioned, to summarize that information and then to initiate conversations with our counterparty in the tunnel agreement, Enbridge, to initiate such acknowledgments or memorandums of understanding and to identify issues that require their participation to mitigate.
Okay, thank you. Anything else with respect to that? All right. I'd like to take just a 5-minute break, and we'll reconvene at 10:55. All right, we're back. We're now at the public comment stage of the agenda. I should reflect for the record that we have received 10 separate online public comments that should be incorporated into the meeting minutes. And in addition to those, if we can call the first person who has signed up. Oh, can you also indicate how many people have signed up for public comment?
Yes, we have 14 individuals signed up, and there is, we appreciate it if you are able to limit your comments to 3 minutes. And the first person is Peter, and second will be Rita Mitchell.
Okay, Peter, you're up.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the invite to this meeting. And I know this is a meeting, a committee meeting, but also I see this as a community engagement opportunity. And that's something I think that's rather new. I was talking to my grandson. Back in the day, these kinds of things were not made available to people like me. Back in the creation of 375, there was no public input sought. And so this is kind of a great thing, so thank you very much for doing that. That said, a couple of comments. Enbridge, indeed, they are a business. They have a right to pursue their business. I get that and I understand that. They have a right to sell energy and make money, and that's the way we do things in America. That said, they also, there's a resident responsibility, and I assume you guys pay taxes too, but there's a resident responsibility to us taxpayers, those people, to make sure that things are done right. And the comments by Mr. Doctoroff, if I remember correctly, I suggest that the committee buy him a hard hat and a vest and put him on site when they're constructing this tunnel, which probably will happen. But the essence of success is this quality control and the risk management. That is what protects us. That is what protects us citizens. Probably back in the day when this line was first placed, there might not have been a whole lot of risk management and quality control done. I don't know, but this intuitively doesn't seem like a great idea to stick a pipe at the bottom of a lake or the bottom of a channel. And so please stay on top of that risk management. Please stay on top of that quality control, because that's what's going to make this happen correctly for the citizens of all the states that surround the Great Lakes and Canada. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Rita Mitchell, followed by Valerie Blakely. And it's okay if you start to line up over here so that we keep it moving. Thank you.
Hello, Commissioners. I'm Rita Mitchell, and I want to just say that your actions and those of the MPSC are complicit in extending the use of fossil fuels into the future and increasing the climate change risks to land, water, air, and life. People, wildlife, and the land and water will suffer because of the ongoing use of fossil fuels. Your actions support the Canadian fossil fuel company Enbridge that extracts oil from Alberta, Canada, and transports it across the continent through the heart of the Great Lakes and on to Sarnia, Ontario, for the refining and export to the world. Very little is used in Michigan. We know that. The 645 miles within Michigan of that pipeline create risk for the 70-year-old pipeline every day. We know that the pipeline has leaked outside of the Straits. The MSCA is overseeing the placement of a Band-Aid on a pipeline that can leak anywhere along its length. I know that you know about Enbridge and the leak in the Kalamazoo area. That did not turn out so well. What concerns me is the narrow focus that you're given. The narrow focus to make sure that a tunnel is built, that agreements are completed, but you're not looking beyond the way, that way, all of the actions that fit together to see to the core of the harm that's being created with the black, sticky, smelly oil that flows through the pipeline. To the Army Corps of Engineers, please assure that one alternative for consideration of the EIS is to shut down Line 5. Don't do it anymore. Walk away from this project. Walk away from the Enbridge greed. Work with others who are working to establish renewable energy for our future so that we have a future to give to our relatives.
Thank you.
I think I have another few minutes, right? Please read my shirt. No tunnel.
I'd like to thank the water protectors in the room. The rest of you, I'm not sure how you sleep at night. First of all, I don't want one dime of my tax dollars paying for this. Not one dime. How dare you approve that? Those are my tax dollars. The water protectors' tax dollars in this room. And we don't approve of that. How dare you? We all know Line 5 needs to be shut down. It was never supposed to be ran indefinitely. It was supposed to be decommissioned after 50 years, or well after that. Well, so this, right now, we shouldn't even be having this conversation. We all know that Line 5 is bad for Michigan, the water, the people, the environment, the animals. We all know this. It's absolutely being ran illegally right now. Michigan evicted Enbridge a couple of years ago. So why are we having this conversation? Why? I have one question for you all. Have you thought about what you're going to say to your kids when they can't swim in the Great Lakes and when they don't have water to drink? Have you thought about what you're going to say to your grandkids? I know what I'm going to say. I'm going to say some people who absolutely didn't care about the water, the people, the animals, or Michigan made decisions that affected their future, that ruined their future, and they're not going to have clean water to drink because of it. A spill along any part of Line 5. It runs through 70 different tributaries in Michigan. A spill at any point would be catastrophic for us, but it'd be really bad in the middle of the Great Lakes. We wouldn't bounce back. There's no cleaning it up. We know you can't clean up tar sands oil because of what happened at the Kalamazoo River. You can still go there and see the oil and the tar balls, and that's an Enbridge pipeline. An Enbridge pipeline. People died. People died. Whole communities were displaced. And we're having this conversation. I know what I'm going to say to my kids. Do you know what you're going to say to yours? How dare you have this conversation right now?
Next is Megan Douglas, followed by Andrea Pierce.
So first, I just want to, ditto to what my homegirl said. Second, 2010, the Kalamazoo River, 15 documented failures on Line 5 since 1988. 2002, Minnesota. 2003, Toledo. 2007, Wisconsin. 2010, North Dakota. 2010, Chicago. 2012, Wisconsin, an average of 71 spills and 500,000 gallons a year. Enbridge is the fox. I hope the paycheck is worth it. I hope one day when this tunnel fails, because it will, that whatever it took for you to value profit over people is enough to buy back and replace 1/5 of the world's fresh water. And I imagine because you're making this decision that you are confident of where the source for that water is going to come from. Because that could be the only way you could make such a choice. I guess it must have been easy to sit at a table disconnected from nature and Robert's rules your way into decisions that threaten not only human life, but the life of countless species of animals, plants, and the life of the water itself. Rest assured, all of you who have agreed to continue and fund this project are direct agents of disaster capitalist agendas. Rather than embrace a vision of the future that doesn't continuously need to rely upon misery and destruction, grief and greed, we could just simply decide to decline to even consider that there is any need so great for oil that we could pretend to craft a plan to manage the risk of the destruction of one of the largest natural sources of life-giving water on the planet Earth. Unless that is that you figured out how to drink oil. When we look back on history, we often ask, what were people doing when these decisions were made? If this project moves forward, this is what you will have been doing. Asking the fox in the hen house to construct the doors, or whether or not the doors are secure enough. Reducing life to terminology couched in acronyms, jargon, and euphemisms, calmly sacrificing the future with an I, because it's easy to kick a can down the road when you repackage the issue to be one of differences of opinion rather than a fundamental matter of survival. There is not enough Dawn dish soap in the world to clean up a spill in the Straits. And there ain't enough soap to wash away the fault if that happens for the people who made that decision. Thanks.
Andrea Pierce, followed by Ali, and then Kate.
Hello there. I'm going to lift this up a little bit. I'm taller than most. I'm Andrea Pierce. I'm a tribal citizen from Little Traverse Bay Band of Odawa Indians, which is right there near Petoskey, Mackinac. My tribal lands are right there. This tunnel is going to go through my tribal lands, okay, putting us at risk. This tunnel ignores treaty rights, all of them. We have the right to gather, hunt, and fish. Can't do that with poison water, can I? I can't teach my children this. I can't teach my grandkids. My grandkids won't be able to teach their kids. This is disgusting. It really is. Who's going to protect the Native American people, huh? Enbridge is known for man camps. Man camps have human sexual trafficking. This is common and it's known. Who is going to protect my people from the human sexual trafficking that comes along with Enbridge energy? A mitigation of risk, that's what we're talking about, a mitigation of risk. That means that there is a risk. There's a risk to the Great Lakes. There's a risk to the people. There's a risk to the land. It is a risk. We should not be consulting with people that are risking our water, our Great Lakes. That's Michigan's. It's in the Constitution. The Michigan Constitution says it must protect the Great Lakes. This is not protecting the Great Lakes. And I need to ask, why are we negotiating with a company that is operating illegally? Illegally. 3 years ago, we had the easement revoked, right? The easement's revoked. They're operating illegally and they're trespassing on Michigan lands. I just don't understand why we are actually negotiating, working on trying to figure out who's going to pay for a tunnel. We all know who's going to pay for the tunnel, Michigan citizens. Rate increases, right? MPSC will rubber stamp that too, like they rubber stamp this BS. Caught myself, thank you. I just can't believe it. And we're talking about between parties of the tunnel, right? That's what I've heard. Parties of the tunnel say this, parties of the tunnel are negotiating this and want this. That means that we're a party to the tunnel. I am not a party to this tunnel. That's right. In any way, shape, or form. I will fight this tunnel. And I'm going to tell you now, your legacy will be a man camp up, or a tunnel camp up there. We will have a DAPL. We will have a Standing Rock in Michigan. You want to know how I know? Because I'm going to be there with me and all my friends. That will be your legacy. You want Michigan on the news for a Standing Rock camp? Native Americans fighting for their rights? Because we will. We have lost too much, and we're not going to lose everything. I refuse for us to lose our Great Lakes. You guys can rubber stamp everything that you can, but we're going to be fighting you every step of the way. I'm done here.
Ali, followed by Kate, and then Anya.
I want to start by saying that I appreciate the eloquence with which the audience has thus far communicated with you, although you may not understand it that way. I'm unfortunately able to extend the same. I'm here to represent just some of the angry, tired, and voiceless of this city, many of whom are not here because you decide to have these types of meetings at 10 a.m. I'm not here to explain anything for you, and considering your salaries, I think that you have plenty of time to do the research yourself. I'm here to say that I'm so ashamed that my family immigrated to a country where I even have to state that I am against the continuation of a pipeline that has already broken laws with impunity. This tunnel violates indigenous treaty laws. Its very existence goes against the voices of authority of the true caretakers of this land, the indigenous citizens of the state. Have we already forgotten what a reality without clean water is like? Or do we enjoy selling out this city to companies like a whore? Seriously, if you think that all Detroit or Michigan needs is another corporation coming in, promising jobs and economy to save the day, then you obviously have not learned from this city's history. The decision to continue will leave us with the responsibility of dealing with the consequences for generations. Change is long due. It's not too late to grow a damn backbone and oppose the continued construction of this devastating pipeline. And stay off your phone while people are talking. That's right.
All right, next we have Kate from Detroit Farmers, followed by Anya. And then after that, I apologize if I mispronounce, Miku.
There is nothing that I can say that the people before me have not stated. If we continue with this, it's not a matter of if it will leak, it's a matter of when it will leak. Enbridge is responsible for millions of gallons of oil spilling in both Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Michigan. The Great Lakes region, as we all know, holds 1/5 of the fresh water. When the line breaks, 700 miles of shoreline around Michigan will be devastated. There goes our pure Michigan economy. I'm here representing the farmers. Without good water, we can't grow food. Detroit has been known to be a food desert. And instead of relying on handouts that weren't coming, we all started growing our own food. And as we started growing our own food, we started to learn about a lot of things at a really high speed. We learned about climate change and the importance of water, and why we don't want tar sands on the Detroit River, or why we don't want pipelines through the Straits of Mackinac. And all I can say is, without no farms, no food, no water, no life.
Anya, followed by Miku and Matthew Bork.
Hi. I wasn't planning to give a verbal comment. I was just going to write online, but I got mad enough. So I really just have a list of bullet points. Ryan, I don't appreciate you giggling when talking about conflicts of interest. The fact is that nature and the rate of decay of your tunnel does not move according to your bureaucratic timeline. Line 5 should not have been built. The Indigenous-led protests should not have been ignored. The new project is insulting to the public, given that it will cause further environmental destruction. You can't explain the risks. Enbridge hasn't included language from state requirements in the contracts. Correct me if I got that wrong, but that's what I heard when you came up here before. Based on your wages, this is clear profiteering at the cost of our water and our future. Words and money exchanged do not mitigate risks. I'm confused about what you meant by acknowledgement of participation to mitigate. Shut down line 5.
Miku, followed by Matthew Bork, and then Dominic Sweeney.
Hi, my name is Mikulash Baron-Gelbavy. I'm a lifelong Michigander, and I grew up in Monroe, Michigan. I know that as we talk about the risk management of this line in our Great Lakes and what that might look like, I know that many of you can't imagine what it's like to not be able to swim in your Great Lake or to drink water from there. But I know what that's like because we could not do that on Lake Erie for decades because of this corporate profiteering and the lack of accountability by bodies like this one. I'm speaking on behalf of myself as a concerned Michigan citizen. I implore you to do everything in your power to stop the Line 5 tunnel and shut down Line 5 and all oil and gas lines that operate near our Great Lakes. This state government is trying to attract young people like me to the state. As a lifelong Michigander and young person, I will not continue to live in a state that allows a pipeline that will undoubtedly pollute our Great Lakes, that disregards environmental quality and the longevity of natural ecosystems, values the profits of private corporations over the public good, and that does not uphold democracy, meaning sincerely listening to those who are here today to speak out against Line 5 and to speak on the well-being of all of our people. Shut down Line 5.
Matthew Bork, followed by Dominic Sweeney, and then Marion Berger.
Hi there, my name is Matthew Bork. I'm a Michigan resident. First off, you might want to check your calendars. I believe it might be 28 days rather than 38 days to file an appeal or a motion for reconsideration. I am a local resident here, so I just want to give some, I'm not looked at as a equal to Enbridge, I don't think. So we're going to try and break things down to like logical terms of what, when we talk about narratives and counter narratives, okay? There's been this whole thing in private military groups and law enforcement, different things, put out these things of counter narratives to change this reality that wants to make us, or they work on supporting this idea that we need to depend on Enbridge to survive. It's a dependency issue, okay? The people that speak against it, okay, let me give you an example. We go like this. Oh, we disagree with this. They say, oh, look at that fist, that's violence, okay, and then we get targeted as terrorists, okay. Then they call it Homeland Security, okay, and then they start following people around and they start going after everything. But let's break this back down a little bit more into logics, okay. What do we need in Line 5? We're talking about propane, okay. We talk about the propane from the northern Michigan area. Don't all Michigan residents agree that we want to be on natural gas? Like, isn't propane equal to lead gasoline? I mean, isn't that an archaic thing? Isn't it the pipeline still exists for Enbridge to provide northern Michigan residents with propane? Isn't there a whole bunch of local businesses that have come forward to say we will provide the local area with propane if they need it? And aren't those same people also saying, hey, we want to change to natural gas? Isn't there a twin pipeline from TransCanada that carries natural gas, gigantic, that also crosses through the Mackinac Straits? Okay, so wait a second, I'm confused at where these arguments are. So now let's go talk about jurisdiction, okay? And it's kind of ironic, we're talking a lot about the jurisdiction and who owns charge. Haven't we been discussing for 6 years, haven't we been in litigation, and Enbridge has been arguing that the state of Michigan has no jurisdiction over Enbridge. It's going to federal court. Almost 2 terms. Okay, we're going on 8 years of arguing over if it's federal jurisdiction or state jurisdiction. Enbridge believes it's federal jurisdiction. So what are we doing here? What are we, are our Michigan tax dollars paying you? So I'm a little confused at where these different things tie together, because we're having discussions about risk mitigation and who's responsible for this. How are we even here today? This is a public meeting. We appreciate you all coming down and making it available, but there's a lot of us that aren't paid to be here. Most of y'all are paid to be here. We can't, the public can't show up 10 in the morning on getting notified the day beforehand and saying, hey, we got a meeting tomorrow at 10 o'clock in the morning. This is public. This is very difficult for a lot of the public to actually be involved in this process. The comment form, I appreciate giving a comment form, but is there a different way that we can actually put in larger comments? I mean, aren't we allowed to question Enbridge? I mean, we get 3 minutes maybe, but Isn't Enbridge the one that's supposed to be providing this service to us? That's supposed to be for us, right? Is it for you? Who's it for? The business or is it for the money? I mean, why are, I understand the Mackinac Bridge public transit, okay? All of us use that, okay? This tunnel, how is that part of public? It's only for Enbridge. I mean, it's only for Enbridge benefit, only for Enbridge money, and we talk about how it's for us Michigan residents. That doesn't seem legit either. Like, how are you even being involved in this process? And don't get me wrong, we appreciate the state of Michigan being involved in different things. Can you say no? What would it take for you to say no? And if you can't say no, please tell us, because what are we even having discussions if you are, our Michigan representatives are not allowed to say no? Please let us know. And if that's the case, then this whole situation's already biased. Let's see, I think, last but not least. We're looking at, after 99 years, we're going to give this tunnel to the state of Michigan, right? What are we going to do with an old tunnel other than have rotten gaskets, okay, which you guys are aware of, the gasket things. Again, how is this working for the benefit of the state of Michigan at all in the long term? I mean, we're looking at individuals making a lot of money, okay? When you look at the last pipeline Enbridge put in is called Nexus. Okay, it was a combination between DTE Energy and Enbridge. Okay, put in 2018. DTE Energy just raised their rates. You know why they raised their rates? Because Enbridge and DTE said, we're going to put in this pipeline and we're going to pay for ourselves. And then they turned around and they started charging the residents for the cost of the pipeline. This is not being paid by Enbridge. This will come out of our back pockets. We're going to be left with this responsibility, and it's going to go for the grandkids and grandkids. You want to leave a piece of trash? That's a gift, to leave a piece of trash underneath the Straits Mackinac. Thank you.
All right, next is Dominic, followed by Marion, and then to conclude will be a representative from Sierra Club, Michigan. Oh, sorry about that, the timer.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm here as a lifelong resident of Michigan. I'm sure many of you have also lived in Michigan your whole lives. I spend almost every chance that I can traveling to the Great Lakes in Michigan, enjoying our water, enjoying being with my family and my nieces and nephews at the water. I'm sure many of you have lake homes or vacation spots that you go to at Traverse Bay or Charlevoix or Alpena on our Great Lakes. This summer was the first time I was able to go up. I am from European background. My family was immigrants here on colonized land. And this was the first summer that I was able to go up and be welcomed by the Keweenaw Bay community of Indians, the Keweenaw Bay Indian community at their Wild Rice Festival up in the Keweenaw Bay this summer. It was the first time that I got to see myself, having lived here my whole life, as a tourist and a visitor on this land. And I realized the difference between being a tourist and being someone who's actually responsible to the land, because this Wild Rice Festival is about recreating habitats that we've destroyed on the water. We don't rely on the water like other people do, because we like to separate ourselves with bottled water, with all of these other things that we like to think that we're protected from, When you talk about mitigated risk, whose risk are you talking about? Because this is a panel of 3 people, and the previous panel, the Public Service Commission, another panel of 3 people taking mitigated risks for millions of people and our descendants. You're taking risks for my nieces and nephews. And you're making yourself a party to a company that refuses to acknowledge an order to remove an old pipeline. This was our elected officials. In 2018, we had an election. We elected Democrats. Many of you are Democrats, right? On this board. I believe 2 out of you are. We elected Democrats because we wanted this pipeline shut down. And it is clear that the Democratic Party is also a party to this, a party to destroying our natural habitats. I just want to say in closing, I go to the lakes, and I like to stand at the shore of lakes and feel how small I am. And I ask that the next time that you're at the Great Lakes, you stand there and you feel how small you are, and you feel the weight of every decision you make here. You are 3 people making decisions that will affect generations. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Marion Berger. I want to thank everyone who's commented before me and just add my voice to the chorus of lifelong Michiganders who are pleading with you to stop this pipeline. As is the case for many people in this state, I've grown up with the lakes as a fundamental part of my life. When I visit them, I can feel the connection to all others who have looked out over them or played in their waters, and I feel at home. The lakes root us all in the history of this place, but they also ensure our future as some of the largest bodies of fresh water in the world. As climate change accelerates, As climate change accelerates, more and more people will be relying on the lakes as a source of fresh water. Are you really willing to risk our collective future to build this tunnel and new pipeline, to cement our investment in an energy source that is pushing our climate to the edge, and risk that source of fresh water for us all? Not to mention that this land does not belong to settlers at all in the first place. Listen to the indigenous stewards of this land who have cared for these lakes for millennia longer than most of us have been here. This new pipeline is not worth the risk, and we must revoke its permits and stop the current pipeline. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners. My name is Christy McGillivray, and I am the Political and Legislative Director for Sierra Club Michigan. I think it's important that we take a moment to reflect on why this body was created as a legal entity. I think Frank Kelly, in particular, would be interested in that. The Straits Corridor Authority exists in order to saddle the people of Michigan with the actual liability of this disastrous engineering project. The fact that the proposed MOUs for risk management are not immediately available to the public is a serious problem. Transparency is the real issue here. Without transparency, there can't be any accountability. So we just heard that there's close to $1 million of new money appropriated in order to provide oversight, but the public needs to have the access to that material as well, and access to the data and decisions that are being used to provide that oversight. So this body is subject to FOIA. We'll be submitting a FOIA. We want to know how the money is being spent, where it's coming from, and we want to know the data that this body is using to make its decisions. We've already seen Enbridge violate industry standards. They've only been taking borehole samples every 950 feet in the Straits. For complex geology like we see under the Straits of Mackinac, the industry standard is really every 50 feet. So that's a serious problem. That's just one of many. A much larger program when we're talking about risk is climate change. Right now at COP28, the UN Secretary General has said, the science is clear, we must stop burning fossil fuels. Not reduce, not abate, stop. This project, slated to be completed in almost 10 years' time, will be locking us into 242 million metric tons of greenhouse gas emissions per year. The science is unequivocal. We have to stop burning fossil fuels. The fact that a conversation about risk is not centering on the risk posed by climate change points to the woeful inadequacy of the model that you're using to evaluate the risk. We were told that 350 parts per million was the tipping point. We are at 420 parts per million of CO2 in the atmosphere now. That's where we're at now. We have passed 1.5 degrees Celsius. There's indications that we've hit 2 degrees Celsius warming. Climate change is here, and this body is talking about risk, and they are not talking about climate change. That is unacceptable and needs to be taken into account.
That concludes the list of folks who signed up as they entered the room today.
Okay. Were there any other folks who are here that didn't sign up that wanted to provide comment and public comment?
She just asked if you were going to read the public comments that were submitted online.
Oh. Yeah, those will be appended to the minutes for this meeting. I'm not going to read them all. There will be these written comments made available and placed on the website so that anyone who's interested in reading them can do so.
The earth is being destroyed. The people who are destroying it, they have names, they have addresses. They have names, they have addresses. It's being destroyed. Shut down and decommission Line 5 right now. Shut down and decommission Line 5 right now. Protect the Great Lakes and shut down and decommission Line 5 right now. And no tunnel. No tunnel. You shouldn't even be considering this. Shut it down.
Okay.
The people destroying the earth have names and addresses, my friends. Understand that. My kids understand that.
Thank you. There were a couple comments made in public comment that I wanted to follow up on. One in particular was that the interface for submitting comments online doesn't accommodate the provision of additional written material. If we can look at that so that if someone wants to submit online, if they also wanted to attach something, I think there may be a technical fix that would enable them to do so. So I'd like to have that reviewed for purposes of public comment opportunities in future meetings. That was the one thing I wanted to address. Any other comments before adjournment? All right. Motion for an adjournment.
I move.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right, the meeting's adjourned.